You have 5 members.
All right. Oh,
You need, I have to correct that. It's nine to make a quorum.
yes. Okay, so we have 5 members. All righty, so I will call the roll call, and we'll get started. All right, this is the Land Use Landmarks Committee meeting for June 5th, 2023. And we'll call the roll call now. Teague here. Chesler.
Here.
Kaminsky. Drinkwater. Indig. Canton. Kelterborn.
I'm here. Good evening.
Hi. Myers.
Present.
Michelli. Rabbi Niederman. Sofer. Vega.
Yo.
Yep. Thank you. Weiser. Berger. Tabachka. Naplatarski. Stone. So, okay, 5 here so far. All right, let's get started. We have a presentation by the Department of City Planning on the City of Yes for carbon neutrality. And who will be presenting?
Hi, my name is Emily Bachman from Department of City Planning, and also joined by Karenza Wood, our Deputy Director of the Brooklyn office at DCP.
Before you get started, I have a question. Is this just a presentation, or do we have to vote on this?
Great question. So my colleague Lucia presented the presentation at a previous meeting. I believe it was the full board in the last few weeks. So I'm actually open to presenting, to answering questions, whatever you guys want. And the board can issue a resolution on the full City of Yes for carbon neutrality proposal anytime before the CPC vote, which is right now tentatively scheduled for mid-September.
So we have to issue our, so the answer is yes, we need to have a resolution to present to the community board.
Yeah.
Okay. So please, let's get started.
Okay, and do you want to see the same presentation that was presented before? I'm happy to do that, or I can go faster or just do a summary, or I'm not sure what you guys prefer.
I think it might be good to have the presentation, but how does everyone else feel?
Yeah, I agree.
Me too.
Okay. So let's get started.
Okay. Just working on sharing my screen. Okay, it's I had to change my permission, so it's making me leave the meeting. I'm going to be back in 1 second. Okay, hi again. Sorry about that. Well, and I'm sharing. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sure. Okay, and can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay, great. So, hi everyone. Again, my name is Emily Bachman. I'm a senior planner in the Brooklyn office of the Department of City Planning. We also have Corinza Wood here, our Deputy Director of the Brooklyn office. I am going to talk about City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality, which is a proposal to update the zoning resolution to help meet New York City's climate goals. City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality is the first of 3 projects that the Department of City Planning is developing as part of the broader City of Yes initiative. 2 other proposals, economic opportunity and housing opportunity, will begin more public engagement later this summer. Those are distinct and independent proposals, which are being staggered the rest of this year and into next year. Many of the elements of the carbon neutrality proposal are urgently needed, aimed at delivering zoning relief to home and building owners who are trying to undertake smart retrofit projects to cut energy costs and help the environment, but are prevented from doing so by the current zoning rules. So first, I just want to take a quick minute to frame the conversation and emphasize that we're facing a climate emergency, largely driven by global carbon dioxide emissions. Carbon dioxide makes up the vast majority of the country's greenhouse gas emissions, 80% in 2019. And in 2016, the world community joined together to sign the Paris Agreement, a vision to cut human greenhouse gas emissions in order to limit overall global warming to 2 degrees Celsius and prevent further environmental damage associated with climate change. And here in New York City, we've been implementing this vision through a number of initiatives under the umbrella of achieving carbon neutrality by reducing the city's emissions 80% by 2050, or 80 by 50 for short. So when we say carbon neutral city, we mean a city where we're focused on reducing operational carbon emissions. That means that we've reduced our overall energy needs by retrofitting almost every building in the city to become highly efficient and to reduce wasted energy. Where we've cleaned the grid, and to do this, we'll need to switch from fossil fuels to renewables like solar and wind. And it's a city where we've electrified all the remaining energy needs, including vehicles and buildings, and moving toward electrically powered technologies. And as you can see in this chart, the key driver of our city's carbon emissions is by far our building sector. So a lot of the proposals in City of Yes for Carbon Neutrality are focused on buildings, but we'll talk about other things as well. The foundation for this proposal includes Zone Green, issued by DCP in 2012, which was the first comprehensive overhaul of our zoning to allow for rooftop wind and solar for the first time. Today's proposal is very much a follow-up to Zone Green. It's revisiting those older rules and updating them in response to new science, technology, and regulations, including the focus on decarbonization coming from the Paris Agreement and 80 by 50, feedback from architects, engineers, and advocates, including Urban Green Council, Zone Greener report, and we're also responding to a recent regulation. So the Climate Mobilization Act at the city level includes Local Law 97, which will impose strict fines on large buildings that do not reduce their carbon emissions. So we're trying to make it easier to comply with that existing law. And the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act at the state level, which set ambitious solar and energy storage goals for the city. Development of this proposal began a little over a year ago when Mayor Adams announced his vision for a city of yes. And since then, we've conducted extensive outreach with stakeholders across the city to help us ensure this proposal would be helpful to those who are trying to add solar, EV chargers, heat pumps, and other things to their buildings, homes, and businesses. We've held 4 open to the public info sessions. I hope some of you have been to some of them, and we partnered with Urban Green Council to convene a group of technical and policy experts to review and provide feedback on an initial draft of the proposal. Along the way, we've engaged in conversations with partner agencies and local stakeholders about what kind of zoning changes are needed to achieve our collective climate goals. And from those conversations, we've identified a number of ways that zoning can be modified. I'm gonna do an overview of them and we can dive deeper after the kind of overview presentation if you have any questions about specific proposals. But I'm going to talk about the 4 key goals and the 17 specific zoning changes within those goals. So the first overarching goal is supporting decarbonization of our city's energy grid. So illustrated in this slide are initiatives already underway at the state and city level. These are not part of our zoning proposal, but they are the context in which our planning work is situated. By 2040, New York State is legally required to achieve 100% renewably based energy grid, which means developing large amounts of offshore wind and bringing in more clean hydroelectric power from upstate New York and Canada. But it also includes putting all our rooftops to work and generating energy across the city with solar panels on the roofs for the most part. To utilize the energy from offshore wind and rooftop solar, our energy grid also needs to become smarter, more decentralized, and more resilient to fluctuations with resources spread throughout the city. So to support that cleaner, decentralized grid, we're going to need more local energy storages, which are essentially large batteries. To support this first goal of decarbonizing our grid, we have 5 specific proposals. The first, rooftop solar, involves modifying rooftop zoning allowances to ensure that there aren't any limitations holding us back from our solar goals. So in many districts today, there are limits to the amount of rooftop that can be covered by solar canopies. And this proposal will update rules to ensure a roof can be completely covered by solar. Second, with parking, we're taking a similar approach to our city's 8,000 plus acres of open parking areas to ensure that's updated to allow solar canopies over parking lots where they exist. In many places that's not allowed today. Third, community solar, where one site is generating clean energy that's used throughout the neighborhood, is currently considered a commercial use in our zoning, which limits where it can be installed. So this proposal would allow community solar to be installed in all zoning districts, including large residential campuses, hospitals, schools, and colleges in residential districts where it's a great fit. Fourth, energy storage. We need to ensure that safe FDNY and DOB reviewed energy storage facilities are located where they're needed most, and that's where people use energy. Right now, energy storage, as you all know, based on the variance that you were just talking about, requires a BSA special permit in residence districts. So this proposal is to I want to make sure I say this right, update those rules for energy storage to help facilitate placement across the city without getting rid of any kind of DOB or FDNY safety regulations and permitting. And fifth, onshore wind turbines face really strict limits in today's zoning. So this proposal would create a new tool that could be used by future applicants to support onshore wind facilities for a public review process, with a public review process through the CPC, the City Planning Commission. Okay, goal number 2, the second overarching goal is to decarbonize our building stock. So that means eliminating fossil fuels from the city's 1 million+ buildings, almost all of which will be around in 2050 when we need to have achieved carbon neutrality. These buildings are by far our biggest sources of carbon dioxide emissions, and to improve, we'll need to retrofit virtually every single building to retire old oil and gas powered furnaces and boilers and replace them with new highly efficient electric systems. and improve the efficiency of exterior walls, windows, and roofs to keep the heat and cool inside, so making them more efficient. It's important to note, as I did earlier, the two laws adopted by the City Council in 2019 and 2021 that are crucial here. First, for large buildings, which are defined as buildings 25,000 square feet and larger, Local Law 97 will begin to impose fines if they do not cut their carbon emissions. And those fines will begin rolling out in 2024 and will increase through 2050. And second, Local Law 154 requires all newly constructed buildings to be electrified from the get-go. So fossil fuel-based equipment will no longer be allowed in new construction. Within that context, we've learned that zoning can help support the decarbonization of buildings in a few key ways. First, electrification retrofits. Zoning can provide more flexibility to accommodate the increasing need for outdoor equipment, such as heat pumps, which cannot be located in building basements or cellars, to be located above the zoning height limit on building rooftops. Second, exterior retrofits. Zoning needs to ensure that where someone is trying to add thicker insulation or reclad an existing building by removing an old facade and replacing it with a new, more efficient one, that they don't run into zoning obstacles that prevent them from undertaking that project. Third, fixing zone green. In 2012, the zone green wall thickness deduction, which awards a small amount of additional floor area for better than code buildings, is updated in this proposal to reflect the latest energy code and best practices for the future. And here I want to note funding sources. In regard to the cost of implementing these retrofits, many funding sources at the federal, state, and city level are available. A New York City Accelerator is a program run by the Mayor's Office for Climate and Environmental Justice that helps connect property owners with technical and financial support to make those changes. Okay, our third overarching goal is to support decarbonization of our vehicles through zoning. There are currently 2 million private vehicles registered in New York City, and less than 1% are zero emission. But by 2035, New York State has a policy that all new vehicles sold in the state will need to be zero emission. So we need to prepare for that future in which a lot of vehicles in New York City are going to be electric. They need to have places to charge. So, finally, on this proposal, we are aiming to support alternate modes such as bicycle, scooter, and mass transit. So specifically within the goal of decarbonizing vehicles, we have 5 key changes that we're proposing. First, by allowing commercial charging facilities in all commercial and manufacturing districts. They're currently prohibited in about half of the city's commercial districts. Second, allowing building owners to designate a portion of their existing parking spaces to be offered up as public EV charger sharing spaces. That's same rules that we have currently applied to car sharing vehicles in existing parking garages or lots, and extending that possibility to public EV chargers. Third, flexible parking, allowing for more flexible use of public parking lots, public parking garages, and commercial accessory parking facilities by allowing car rental, car sharing, commercial vehicle storage, and public EV charging within those facilities too. Fourth, automated parking, expanding special rules that apply only in Manhattan today to allow for indoor automated parking facilities to be an option citywide. And fifth, updating parking rules to acknowledge the need for public bicycle parking and to allow bike parking facilities in commercial districts. Okay, our fourth and final overarching goal, it relates to our city's stormwater and solid waste and helping eliminate the carbon emissions associated with both of those waste streams. We can reduce stormwater runoff by promoting greater permeability on site, which means less water flowing into energy intensive treatment plants We can reduce the energy associated with hauling and processing garbage by reducing the amount. Up to 45% of our waste stream is organic material that shouldn't go to landfill and can be reused within the city. And we can reduce the carbon emissions associated with our food by promoting more local food production on our city's rooftops. So within that context, zoning can help decarbonize our waste streams in 4 key ways. First, permeable pavers. We want to clarify zoning's paving rules to ensure that permeable paving, which allows water to infiltrate into the soil right where it falls, is always allowed. With street trees, second, we are proposing to update our zoning street tree requirements to allow for new high performance tree bed types like connected tree beds and rain gardens. Third, composting. The zoning resolution today doesn't actually reference or account for composting or recycling. So we're looking to add specific rules clarifying where those uses are allowed and to help those sectors grow. And fourth, rooftop greenhouses are allowed on top of non-residential buildings, but to build one, current rules require you to obtain a certification from the chair of the City Planning Commission. By streamlining this requirement, we would allow DOB to review applications for building permits and cut costs and simplify the process for those looking to grow food on rooftops. So these are all 17 of the proposals I just touched on. Again, we can go deeper if you have questions about specific ones. And as a citywide zoning text amendment, all 59 community boards are concurrently reviewing this proposal with borough boards and borough presidents right now. In July, the City Planning Commission will hold a public hearing on the proposed changes. And as I said earlier, community board resolutions can be submitted to the CPC up until their vote in mid-September, where the commission will vote on approving or modifying the proposal and pass it on to the City Council, where they'll have 50 days to review before adopting any proposed changes. So that's it. I'm ready to take any questions, and thank you again for having us. Okay, I see a hand.
I can't, I'm trying to see the people here. Can you take down your presentation or?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so please make sure that we have the printout so that I can ask Joanna to attach it to my report, my committee report. Great. Okay. So Steve, I see you have a question. I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Yep. I
Thank you.
lowered my hand, but I didn't press the unmute. So sorry. Thanks for the presentation. Yeah, I have a question about 2 of the proposed changes. It's related to renewables, both the solar panels and battery storage system. With the proposal to allow a greater square footage on a roof, I guess up to 100% for solar panel arrays. I just wonder if are there issues with accessibility for first responders for FDNY that this potentially could inhibit if allowed, or are there, I guess safety protocols that have to be followed to have that type of array up there, that square footage.
Do you want to ask both your questions first, or I'll go one by one?
Yeah, I think because the second one is more of a deeper dive.
Okay, so we consulted FDNY and DOB very closely on this whole proposal. We have letters of support from both agencies for everything I just showed you. The proposal for rooftop solar includes feedback we got from FDNY about their need to access rooftops. So by raising the height limit, they told us they wanted, and this I think is correct, they told us they needed 10 feet of clearance. So we're basically, if it's covering the whole rooftop, they need to be able to get underneath the entire thing in order to access buildings from the roof. So yes, we talked to them. We needed their feedback, and this reflects their safety needs.
Okay, all right. Guess we'll take your word on that. Regarding the battery storage system, I guess essentially it's a, I understand it's basically language change, if I understand correctly, that there's still, in certain circumstances, you can build as of right. In certain circumstances, it requires a special permit through BSA, which is similar to what's going on now, but you're just basically bringing in language. There's no current language referencing a battery storage system. I think it's under the umbrella of electrical substation. Or is it going beyond in terms of relaxing the rules involved in terms of acquiring and being allowed to install that type of system?
So first, yeah, you're right. So battery storage systems that are building scale are not currently in the zoning. They're not referenced. It's technology that's new enough that it's not in the zoning. The zoning tends to be pretty clunky. So it doesn't, this is what it takes to update it. It doesn't happen as quickly as new technology develops. So right now, because there's not clarity on how zoning treats them, they are getting treated in the same way that like a large kind of citywide energy storage system and transmission system would be, which is why they are going through BSA special permits
Right.
currently.
But if I understand correctly, though, say, I think is threshold, it's about square footage, but is it also about the capacity of the unit and the I guess the I want to say the output of the building, I want to say. If one, if it's within that threshold, then it's, I guess, considered as of right, but if it exceeds the threshold, then you go into special permit territory. I understand.
Yeah, I think for that question, I'm gonna need to take that back to
Okay.
our zoning division. I'm not sure exactly what the threshold is.
Right.
Carenza, do you have anything to add there?
I do not. We'll take it back. Thanks.
Okay. But you're essentially saying that it's, in terms of approval process, in terms it's essentially the same. It's just you now have more distinct language describing a battery storage system that uses like lithium ion type of technology or another technology. Like right now that doesn't have that. Even though, I don't know if you probably was in the press today about the 315 Berry Street special permit that I spoke about earlier. That was a multi-year battle, and it came through, our board for an approval, and came back again on the urging of the tenants. And but they nailed it down that it was a battery storage system. And I guess you mentioned FDNY. All the agencies basically have blessed these 17 provisions, including this one. But one of the things that came up during interactions, we invited FDNY to our full board earlier in the year to address the proposal at 315 Berry in relation to extinguishing a potential fire in a large scale system like this. And basically they said they in terms of in the field experience, they only have it with small like e-bike batteries, that they don't have experience to actually extinguishing a BSS, and real of any size, and definitely not the size that was proposed for large or a residential loft building like that. So and I was doing some research on it, that these units have to be certified by Underwriters Laboratories, and that organization updated their testing for BSS, and also after the catastrophic fire in Arizona. which, they're claiming that unit was not included in their, in their database of models to test. But so I mean, I welcome the technology. I realize that we need everything, all the 17 areas, we need everything to progress forward and, reduce the carbon dioxide output by the city. And I know batteries, storage is a key part of it, but, it just, I don't know, I guess when we get around to voting, I still have a deep concern based on our our interaction with FDNY. Even though, BSA inevitably approved that special permit today, they're still deferring to DOB to sanction the integrity of this building, which is in question by a lot of people, and FDNY's, they're, certifying it. So yeah, but so yeah, I would, and I guess when we get around to that, committee members, that I want to talk about that. But I mean, does that, come up in the, I guess in the, creation of that particular provision? I know that I saw that the planning chair today was quoted that it sounded like they've been impacted by that particular application.
Yeah, so I do actually have an answer to the question about what the threshold would be. So in the proposal, there are tiers. So for smaller installations, smaller than 10,000 square feet, so it's based on area, not output,
Okay.
they would be permitted as of right in residence districts. They still need DOB and FDNY permits.
Mhm.
And for larger installations with footprints larger than 10,000 square feet, they would still require a BSA review before locating in residence districts.
Mhm.
I'm not sure what the Berry Street one, what the square footage is. Do you know?
Actually, I can't offhand, but it's definitely well over 10,000. It's pretty large.
Okay.
I think the
Well,
unit itself is going to be 400,000 pounds. So,
so I won't comment
yeah.
on exactly what it is because I don't know. But if
Okay.
it is over than 10,000 square feet,
Mhm.
it would still, under this proposal, go through the same BSA special permit process that you just
Yeah.
experienced.
Right.
In addition to subsequently, once they get the special permit, they still need to get DOB permits
Right.
and sign off and
Also,
FDNY sign off.
in terms of the zoning, the current zoning, in terms of what I understand in a C designation that might have residential, over that those installations are as of right, if I understand correctly. And so I think, being that I think that is true, then what is the impetus behind requiring a special permit over a certain scale in an R district, but it's as of right in a C district where there's residential over it? Like what,
Okay, so in the current zoning, because they're not defined as their own thing,
Mhm.
battery storage systems are falling under this category of electric utility substations,
Mhm.
which means that no matter their size, they need a special permit to locate in residence districts. And what we're proposing is to make small ones under 10,000 square feet
Right.
allowed as of right.
Right. Right. I understand that. I'm just trying to think, like, for instance, there are C2 districts on our commercial boulevard, say in Greenpoint, like on McGinnis Boulevard, Manhattan Avenue, and one side of Franklin. So theoretically, under that threshold or over the threshold of special permit, someone could, they could install one without the special permit on a C designation with residential over it. But across the street, say in Franklin, where it's R, they have to go through the special permit process. And I'm trying to understand why an installation is basically, sanctioned as of right, like it's okay there, but it's, there's special scrutiny for a residential district. Is it
Right.
safety?
So
Is it compatibility?
So I think clarification there is that if it's commercial overlay, the commercial is considered the overlay and the residential district is the base. So right now, in an area that is zoned residential with a commercial overlay, a battery storage system of any size needs a special permit. It like reverts to the residential, not to the commercial overlay.
Hmm.
There are parts of the city that have purely commercial zoning and where residential uses are not allowed.
Okay,
So in those places, right now, a battery storage system does not need a special permit and is
Okay.
available as of right.
okay. Yeah, I thought, like, I attended one of the kind of preview meetings. I thought one of the, you know, the staff planners might have confirmed the assumption that I made versus, you know, if is an underlying residential zoning there, that it requires the permit, but, but
We
yeah,
can double check on that.
okay.
Carenza, do you have an immediate clarification?
No, I don't. But
Okay.
while we're chatting, I'll also take a look and see if I can get an
Okay.
answer.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. I took up a lot of time. Thank you, Dell.
Thank
That's it
you.
for me.
And I see Raleigh C. So can you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Hi, Raleigh Capizalo. I started on the phone. I came over here. I'm a resident in Williamsburg. I actually just had a question, a clarifying question. During the presentation, you were talking about certain local laws, and are they already passed? Are you referring to ones that have already passed, or is it are these a bundle of local laws that are going to be? How does that work versus what you're sort of proposing here?
Sorry. Yes, every local law I referenced is current law, has already passed. So local law 97, which is the one that imposes fines for buildings that don't electrify, is the main thing that we're responding to here. We're trying to make it easier for buildings to make the changes they need to make to comply with that existing law.
Got it. So this is basically gonna happen no matter what the law is passed. These proposals that you're referring to are sort of making it easier, removing red tape, if you will, to let landlords comply with laws that have already been passed. Is that a
Yeah.
fair kind of a summary?
Yeah, that's a fair summary.
I don't see any other questions, but I have some questions. Can you go over again just when it is that buildings will be subject to being fined? These are buildings that are already in existence, and what they will be subjected to being fined.
Okay, so for that, I really recommend going to New York City Accelerator. I'm gonna dig up the link and put it in the chat. Every building is different. The fines begin in 2024, but it's not all buildings at once. Certain buildings with affordable housing have a longer period to make the changes before the fines get passed on. And it's large buildings, so like an individual homeowner is not subject to the law. I am gonna dig up the link, but I really recommend everyone, you can put your specific building into the search and it will tell you like how the law applies to you, and then also what all the funding sources to make the changes are. So let me dig that up.
But I think, we're going to have to vote on this tonight. And so I'm just curious, how are buildings that are already in existence, especially large buildings, expected to completely change over their heating and cooling systems by 2024? that's what's being expected of the buildings?
No, that's not what's being expected. It's also not related to this proposal, to be honest. Sorry, I can't really I can't figure out the chat at the same time.
Yeah, I think
So
our
how
chat,
is that not related? I mean, you're talking about finding buildings that are not that have not complied by 2024. So what is it that these building owners have to do in order not to be fined in 2024? That's next year.
So, right. And this is like, that question is being discussed in city council hearings as we speak. So DOB has not issued any kind of final instruction about how it will be enforced. I will tell you what I know about the law that was passed. So Local Law 97 was included in the Climate Mobilization Act, which was passed by City Council in April of 2019 as part of the mayor's New York City Green New Deal. Most buildings over 25,000 square feet will be required to meet new energy efficiency and greenhouse gas emissions limits by 2024, with stricter limits coming in effect in 2030. So there's a tiered enforcement of the law. It doesn't all start at once. The goal is to reduce emissions produced by the city's largest buildings 40% by 2030 and 80% by 2050. Again, it's a tiered goal. And the law sets progressively stricter emissions caps over time and encourages building owners to invest in energy efficiency measures and renewable energy sources to meet those requirements. Again, as it was stated earlier, that law exists. What we're proposing in City of Yes for carbon neutrality is exactly attempts to reduce red tape that currently exists within the zoning that is making it harder to make those retrofits. And I'm gonna find, is there a chat for this meeting?
No, there isn't.
No.
Oh, okay, that explains why I couldn't find it.
If you could add your this collateral to the report you sent to the board, that'll be great. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great.
email it to the board too.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so NYC Accelerator is really helpful. It's updated all the time to talk about how that law impacts specific buildings. Again, you can look up your specific building and also what funding sources exist for different types of buildings.
Okay, so then in line with, I guess, the prior question is, you're not, the law has been passed, and this proposal is not instituting this law. This proposal is just trying to get rid of some of the red tape. Okay,
That's right.
all right, thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? I don't see any.
If I could just add one more note, the way I'm thinking about it is, Del, like what you brought up, it does seem kind of like a wild goal for some of these buildings to fully decarbonize by 2024, and like I am looking forward to seeing how the city makes that easier in terms of funding and financing, and making that realistic. And that seems like what New York City Accelerator.
Yeah, I agree, but I think it's important that we understand that what we're being presented with is not a presentation that is saying that we have to approve the law. The law apparently is there.
Yeah.
And so I guess, that's another discussion that maybe should have been had earlier. And I do wonder how widely spread this was throughout the community and throughout the city, and whether people really knew, the details. But it seems to me that it sounds like that bridge has passed to some extent. Or that ship has sailed that way.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else have any other questions or comments? I will say that, as you know, and the committee will discuss this, but I think it's really important to once again clarify our concern about safety of these storage systems, and the fact that from our interactions with the fire department, it seems to us that they don't really have a lot of experience. I'm trying to be fair here, that they don't have a lot of experience in dealing with fires that would erupt in these, these large storage systems on rooftops in our residential areas. And I don't know if this, I guess this application and this presentation, in your presentation, I guess that is an issue here, because it seems to me that you're making it easier for people to have these storage systems on their rooftops. That's correct, right?
It is fair to say that this proposal includes a provision to make it easier to site small scale, less than 10,000 square feet energy storage systems on buildings. Yeah.
And Steve, do we know how big the system is at 315?
It's much bigger than that.
Much bigger.
Yeah,
So what are we talking about? A system that's less than 10,000 square feet? Can we?
Would that be like on a townhouse or like a small, like apartment building, maybe with, a few dozen units or something like that, right? I mean, roughly.
I think I'm going to have to take that back and see if we can get an example of exactly what that looks like.
Dell, may I speak? William
Sure,
Vega.
of course.
Thank you. This is, it's already, like you said, the ship has sailed, but I think in our resolution, we should express, especially with these buildings that we have that have not been taken care of, our deep fear and lack of confidence that, because in a town hall meeting, I didn't, but one of our community board members asked this question for the FDNY. None of us came out of that meeting with any sense of confidence that they could address this, because they don't have any. All they said, we never dealt with this. And as you can hear, all these electrical bicycles creating problems. My fear is with the buildings that have not been well maintained, when they install these facilities, they're going to go to the cheapest buyers. And many times these buyers are not, been properly tested. And the same problems we're having a lot of these batteries, they weren't properly tested. So I have deep fears, and I don't have any confidence that FDNY can protect us. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I have a
Everybody else
suggestion in terms of
thinks so.
the potential resolution is, approving the 17, text changes, except for number 5, which is related to energy storage systems, until FDNY establishes an extinguishing, fire extinguishing methodology for ESS systems.
Until the FDNY approves.
Establishes, a system for extinguishing energy storage systems.
Fires.
Mhm.
I just want to clarify, the energy storage proposal is proposal number 4.
It is?
Thank you.
Isn't 4 onshore wind? I'm saying onshore wind at number 4.
Onshore wind is number 5.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah,
this
I'm
is,
looking at an older proposal, I guess.
okay, this is number 4 then. Yes?
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, well,
And also, I mean, do we, addressing what William just brought up, and was an issue with 315 Berry, is just the physical state of the building.
yeah,
You know, I don't figure how to reference that, but just terms that the obviously, you know, DOB, they need certification from DOB. Actually, I think the FDNY needs certification from DOB as well. But I don't know if we just in our notes just reference, you know, the severe issues we had with 315 Berry related to the fire extinguishing problem, but also just the integrity of the building. That, you know, the owner had dozens of open violations, partial vacate orders, those types of things. And, you know, the BSA approved that application today for a special permit, and they deferred to DOB and FDNY for signing off on it. But this is troubling. They can get beyond that without, you know, and worry if it's like, it's just a townhouse that has a small solar array. I just feel like, you know, just have to, you know, I don't know what physically involved that needs to be on the roof to insulate it from, you know, fire, from potential thermal runaway, or they have systems that are quote unquote immune from thermal runaway. I don't know, but yeah, unfortunately, I don't have how to put that, but
well, I don't know if it's up to us to have to do that. I mean, we're talking, even when you're talking about a townhouse, often they're connected, you know.
that's right. That's even more reason to have strict, you know, regulations and safety protocols in place.
I mean, it was very disconcerting to have the fire department. I'm very pleased that the fire department was honest with us. That, let me say that. Thank goodness that they didn't try to, you know, they were willing to answer us, so to their credit. But that certainly led us to, I think, be very justified in our concern about whether they're really ready to deal with the potential fires that might be caused by these batteries. Mrs. Arn, you know, we live here, that our neighbors all live here. This is scary. And yes, of course, there's you know, we want to deal with climate change and with, you know, pollution and climate change and all of that. But it just seems to me that there also are the lives of people and the people's safety need to be a big part of that picture. And, you know, I mean, you know, the fire department might be doing some training. They might be doing something now that we don't know about. And that would be delightful if it changed. But this is.
But Daryl,
you know, yes.
Daryl, that question was asked. They don't have anything planned.
No.
As we speak.
Right.
That was just a few weeks ago.
Yeah. And you know, William and to everyone, I did say it looked like the ship had sailed, but not on this. This is something that is definitely a part of this proposal. This proposal proposes to make it easier for these storage systems to be put on these roofs. And we have, you know, the honest statements from our, I don't want to say testimony, but honest statements from our fire department admitting that this is not something they're really skilled in. Yes.
I have a few questions for Emily in regards to this. So one, I guess, is like we would all maybe like an alternative to battery storage. You know, like is there, and I'm curious as to what alternatives were explored, and you know, are there opportunities for, you talked about a need for a distributed grid. Is there a reason that these facilities can't be further away in non-residential areas? Was that explored, and what challenges were brought to. That's one of the questions. I'm also curious as to, you talked about FDNY's input to your plan with the solar panel clearance height, and I'm wondering if they they had input on this, on these battery facilities as well, and what their advice was for that, because it sounds like, I mean, I wasn't at that meeting, but it sounds like whoever was representing the FDNY there didn't have a lot of confidence in the department's ability to take care of that. But I'm curious if there are other members of DFDNY, if what process basically did they go through to give input on this plan? And then the last question is what exactly the as of right means. That's just something I don't know. Like in terms of like what is there, what right, if you don't need a special permit, if we're reducing that need, what is left in terms of like, is there an inspection that has to happen, or is it literally like anyone can just put up, without checking in with the city, anyone can just install these batteries anywhere they like, if it's sufficiently small? So those
Okay.
3 questions.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the as of right question. Sorry, that's jargon. In New York City, we have what's called as of right development, which means if a development plan complies with the existing zoning, then they don't need to go through the Department of City Planning or the Board of Standards and Appeals for a project-specific approval, as long as it meets the current zoning. They just go straight to the Department of Buildings for plan approval. So we have some specific types of actions that additionally require a BSA permit or a CPC special permit. Sorry. And then if someone wants to build something that's explicitly not allowed in the zoning and they can't get a variance, then they can apply for a rezoning or a change in zoning. So as of right really just means it's allowed. It's allowed in the current zoning, and the zoning isn't something that's standing in its way. Doesn't mean they don't need other permits, building permits, but it's not a zoning issue.
And then they don't have to come to the community board for any approval from us.
Okay, and
It's a
the
permit, and that's
permit
it.
from the permit from the building department, what is involved in getting that? What hoops do they have to clear for that?
Well, that may be out of scope.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something, I guess you'd have to, unless you all know, then feel free, but.
Carenza, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately depends at the Department of Buildings on what kind of intervention you're seeking. You know, for example, for a new building permit, that's a certain type of permit. There's tons of documentation that needs to be provided. You know, the architect has to provide drawings, have to demonstrate compliance with zoning and the building code. And then the Department of Buildings will do a thorough compliance review. I can't speak to the specifics of what this process looks like, but I think that's something that we can also take back and then follow up with this group.
Just seems like the more that we know about what kind of safety measures are going to be observed for these smaller things, if they don't need a special permit, I think the better.
Dell, if I may speak.
Sure.
I just want to say, because I sit in the environmental committee, and Steve is our chair, and so it's not just this committee that has concerns. Our environmental protection committee has great concerns about not having adequate response if there stuff does happen. If there's a fire, if they were to put it out with water, that whole building would collapse. Steve, if you want to add, but I think it should be mentioned. There's not just one committee, but 2 committees that have concerns.
Well, yeah, the environment committee prompted a couple follow-up letters to the BSA and FDNY after our conversations, both with tenants and with FDNY, just discouraging the approval of that permit without FDNY establishing a protocol for extinguishing fires from BSS or lithium ion type systems. So, so that's kind of what I was getting at in terms of approving the package is singling that provision and base it like a conditional no for that provision, like until FDNY establishes a protocol for extinguishing ESS fires.
Okay, there were a couple of questions that I haven't responded to that I'm going to make sure I don't let fall off. One was about why allow them in residential districts where people live. Why not just make them be located farther away? That is really like, it goes back to the fundamental need to decentralize our grid and have storage close to where demand is. So it's like a basic part of that concept of a new, clean, decentralized grid. I'll also say we live in an incredibly mixed use city, and increasingly so. So it's not quite so easy to separate residential from commercial. We live on top of restaurants, and we walk to offices, and those things are all smushed really close together. So that I think is a big part of it. There was another question about whether or not FDNY gave feedback on the full proposal. Yes. So, and you do not have to take my word for it. Their letter of support is on our website. You can read it. It is not just about rooftop solar. It's about all 17 proposals. I will not speak on their behalf, but they have done so, and you can read it. And I also just want to clarify, because people have been talking about bicycle batteries, that building scale batteries that we're talking about in proposal number 4 are fundamentally different from the lithium ion batteries that are in bicycles. And that they're really, I don't want to confuse them, and I am not trying to convince you any one way or another what you're going to vote tonight, but I do want to caution you against comparing those two things together. There are some examples of battery storage systems in New York City, including on the roof of the Barclays Center, on the roof of NYCHA Marcus Garvey Apartments. Those are installations that were approved through BSA variances within the last decade, and that have been operating without incident. And I also just want to point out, like, in the difference between building scale batteries and bicycle batteries, that energy storage systems are much larger. They're stationary. They meet some of the most stringent inspections and certifications in the country before being installed, while e-bike batteries often are not certified at all. They require regular recharging, and often that recharging is happening on improper outlets, which is where a lot of the really tragic fires are coming from. I definitely don't want to dismiss the fear, and it's a very real fear, and you are not alone in it. And I hear that you're going to want to see more assurance from FDNY, and I encourage you to ask for it if that's how you feel. But I just wanted to clear those things up.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to mention that I know that there are times when maybe people do confuse the two, the bike batteries versus the building scale batteries. But when we were meeting with the fire department, it was with respect to the building scale batteries. As a matter of fact, it was specifically about 315 berries. So that's what we were dealing with there. So so we weren't confusing that. And but yes, that's a valid thing to point out to us. All right. I guess we can move on. We'll have to. We should have our vote on this, and then we can't get to the 2 trees until we get to new business. So that's a little bit of an odd thing that we're doing here, but we'll see if we can work it out. So thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Corey, I see you, right? Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Corey.
How's your baby?
My baby is very crying tonight, but but generally speaking, he's happy and healthy.
All right, so maybe we'll get to meet him one day.
Yes,
He is gorgeous. He is
Oh,
gorgeous.
well, thank you. Yes, I will when he's in a happy mood, I'll throw him in.
Okay, great.
Dell, do you want me to try see if I can get hold of Adam? He stepped out.
Oh, yes, sure,
Okay.
that would be great. Great. All right.
So, so how do you feel about, I mean, approving this, 16 of the items? And then the one, I guess, number 4 related to the ESS, language that it not be improved until protocols are established for extinguishing any ESS installations on buildings.
I personally think that's a very good idea. I'm fine with that. I will see what other people think, but, and I think we'd be really irresponsible not to do that. And frankly, what's the downside to that? I mean, then the city has the city can go to the fire department and say, the residents are concerned about this because they haven't seen any protocols for dealing with these building scale battery storage systems and for extinguishing fires. And perhaps, I think we have a right to ask for those protocols.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll make a motion to approve, I guess.
I'm sorry. My dog is all upset because my husband's going out and he thinks we're going to hug and say so long to each other, and that's like catastrophic.
All right, so he objects. Okay.
He objects. Okay. As you can see, there was no hug.
Yeah.
All right.
So so to approve, I guess 1 through 17, except for 4. Oh, wait, there, Greg from planning has his hand up.
Yes, Greg.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to check as we're talking about all of this, right? Because Emily did mention, right, that it's important to draw a distinction between the building scale battery storage versus, things that are in our phones and bikes and the lithium ion batteries that we do have everywhere. That there's a genuine distinction there. Is this right? I know that the fire department said they didn't know, or that they weren't necessarily confident in how to put out one of these fires. Are there examples of these fires, or is this an unfounded?
They said they don't have experience with with a system larger than an e-bike type of system. In Surprise, Arizona in 2019, a large facility had a catastrophic fire that injured 9 firefighters. But it was a system that was subject to thermal runaway, and it's not what was proposed for 315 Berry, but still. There was a fire in Beijing at a mall on a department store with the lithium iron phosphate system, similar to what 315 Berry is proposing. The origins are really unknown, but yeah, I mean, to Dell's point, we understand it's not quite apples to apples, but still, I feel like just in light of, there was another Arizona fire after that, and looked like there was another one in another part of the country. I think like I said, it's just kind of a extension of what we expressed to BSA and FDNY after our conversation, that establish a protocol design a process for extinguishing these types of fires or trying to contain them, other than just dousing them with seemingly infinite amounts of water for a long period of time. I think the second fire in Arizona took 5 days to extinguish because
May I say, Greg, we used the wrong words, but we were specifically about this location, and we know it's not the bicycle batteries, but this location also has a building that has been neglected for decades. And the other locations you're talking about are relatively new, so that's one of the concerns. They told us to pull out this fire if it happens. The amount of water will collapse the building. So they didn't say they had no confidence. We had no confidence in the presentation because they said they had no experience whatsoever. Thank you.
Yeah, and the fire department it seems to be fine with approving the battery on 315. We are not fine with the fact that the application was approved. And by the way, just to answer your one question before about why have they considered not having them on residential buildings, that was something the community board already requested, and obviously it's been denied. So yeah. Corey, you have something? Go ahead. Corey?
Yeah, I apologize for being late to the meeting, but just so I understand this vote and can participate in it, the vote is on the battery storage for.
No, the vote is on the whole City of Yes proposal, that they presented to us tonight. They went through the entire thing with us. And just to sort of in a nutshell clarify, for the most part, what they presented was not something that was going to change the law. The laws this presentation, for the most part, except for this, is something that will make it easier for the buildings and for the city basically to comply with laws that have already been passed. So, for instance, the need for buildings to start to comply with changing around their use of fossil fuels, and the prospect that they will be fined in the future if they don't at different points. That's already been passed. I don't know how widely known it is, but that's been passed. So the proposals here are things that will alleviate some of the roadblocks for building owners and for residents to comply. So they won't have to, they might not have to ask for a special permit to do different things. They'll be able to put solar panels on their rooftop without going through the hoops that they have to go through now. The one thing though that this proposal will affect, it is going to make it easier for the building owners in the buildings to have these building scale batteries on their roofs. Under 10,000 square feet, they can do it as of right. They just go to DOB and get a permit. And then over 10,000 square feet, then they do have to go to, I guess, to city planning and get a special permit. So it will make things easier for solar panels or for different energy efficient systems, where now you might have to go through a whole lengthy process getting maybe a zoning change or a special permit. Then it'll make it easier to comply to the new rules. So that's why Steve and some of us are talking about, well, we could approve the presentation with the exception of proposal number 4, which deals with the easing up on requirements for building size, storage of building size batteries.
Okay.
Because, yeah, so, yeah.
I appreciate the rundown, and it sounds like it's mostly procedural and in a way that is for greener buildings, except for this battery aspect that it would.
I think so. I mean, that's how it's been presented, and I think that seems consistent with what we were presented with. And you know, we I think rightfully have a very, you know, deep concern about whether we're really ready to safely install these building size batteries. And that doesn't mean it can't be done. It doesn't mean the fire department can't get up to date, up to speed, you know. Okay.
I'm concerned about that as well.
Okay. Now we're about to vote now, so only committee members can participate in the voting.
Yeah, so I should reiterate the motion.
There's a motion now, so we
To approve all 17
Okay.
items in the,
Can I say one more thing before the motion?
no, because the motion was made.
Okay.
Is it something you feel is theoretically you shouldn't be able to say anything now because the motion's been made?
Sorry, I had my hand up earlier, but I wondered if
All right, is everyone okay with, we can allow him to speak? I'm fine with it. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate the exception. I'm curious if maybe the suggestion could be made instead of just outright excluding item 4, but maybe replacing it with a mandate for the fire department to come up with a satisfactory training plan to deal with fires like this, more research to be gone into chemical fires of this nature. And I'm definitely curious to see more about that, because it sounds like something they don't have a lot of experience with, because it hasn't happened a lot. That doesn't mean that it can't happen, right? Like, we need to be ready for this stuff. So I'm wondering if it could be.
yeah, well, the
Yeah.
motion is it's a conditional
That
no for
yeah.
this
Yeah.
4th item. It's basically saying until they've designed a method to extinguish energy storage system installations on buildings. Actually, FDNY designs those, then
Mhm.
should not approve this item in the proposal. So
So this will
Thank
be,
you.
yeah, exactly. This will be a mandate on the fire department to come up with protocol with respect to that. So let me get this. Approve all 17 proposals except proposal number 4, which deals with energy storage systems on buildings until the FDNY establishes protocol for extinguishing fires, for protocol for extinguishing caused by building scale batteries.
building scale energy storage systems.
Building scale energy storage systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right, ESS, great.
And William Vega seconds.
Okay, so can we have a vote? And Joanna, would you, I think we have a quorum now, I'm quite sure. What do you say, Joanna?
Yes.
Okay,
So,
so, yes, okay, so we have a quorum. I'll just do the roll call, and Joanna, will you just record the vote?
yes.
Thank you. Okay, Teague, yes. Chesler,
Yes.
Kaminsky, Drinkwater, Indig, Canton,
Yes.
Kelterborn,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Pacelli, Rabbi Niederman,
Yes.
Sofer. I know you're here, Isaac. Sofa,
Yes.
Vega,
Yes.
Weiser, Berger,
Yes.
Kavachka,
Yes.
Naplatarski, Stone.
You have 10 yes, 0 no, no abstentions.
Okay, it passes. Okay, now, we did talk about the possibility of, should we discuss the possibility of going in person? And it seems that that's moot because it appears anyway that after June, they will be requiring in-person meetings. And then the next question is whether there can be hybrid meetings, and I believe that's being looked into, and I don't know the answer to that, but that is being looked into. So if it's all right with everyone, I'd like to go on to new business because as hopefully everyone read the emails, Dave Bambino contacted me a few days ago on behalf of Two Trees and was very apologetic and said, I just found out that we are going to have to appear before the City Design Commission we are before the City Design Commission, I'm sorry, and we will have to go to the community board and get a response, not necessarily by a public hearing, but get an evaluation from the community board on an application that we have for some lighting around the Domino development, and also a particular piece of the sidewalk that they want to make special. And what I thought was, I looked at it, I don't think this is going to be controversial. And I will say that I did speak to Sante, who's not here, but Sante said that he was fine with the application. And if we could, so I thought, well, maybe we could get it put on the full board meeting, but that I wasn't able to do that. I wasn't able to accomplish that because the full board meeting that's coming up is really, really full. But what we came up with was, since there's, as far as we know, there is not a requirement to have a public hearing on this. Basically, I'm trying to arrange something so that if it's not a controversial request, if the community board is for the most part satisfied with the design, then we could vote on it at the next full board meeting and not have to come back in person probably during the summer. And obviously we've done that. We've come back in person, and I mean, we all know that this committee has put in its share of meetings during the summer, but I'm thinking if we can avoid that this year, that would be amazing. So what we thought of was Dave will make his presentation, and make sure, please, Dave, make sure you have a hard copy presentation that that Joanna has, so that if we all agree it's okay tonight, that can be attached to my report. And then it's a little bit, odd, but I think that we might be able to do it this way. Then I will, in my report, my land use report at the next full board meeting, I will say that we heard the presentation in new business, and if we can approve it tonight, then I will give the full board the opportunity for someone to make a motion for the full board to vote on it at the full board meeting, thus avoiding the need to come during the summer. So hopefully you're all okay with this, and we'll give it a try. All right, not hearing any objections. Dave Lambina, why don't you just give us your presentation?
Thanks everyone for your time and service. Really appreciate it. This is, as Del mentioned, you know, we have two requests of the Public Design Commission, which is the city body that determines design treatment for public places. If I can share my screen now, I can tell you why we need that here. Okay, so this is an application we've made to the Public Design Commission to do two design treatments to the refinery. One is to, in the evening, have a gentle uplighting from Kent Avenue of the restored brick facade, which is landmarked, obviously, and we've been in front of this committee many times for the landmarking aspect of it. And two, in front of the marquee, which this committee approved not so long ago. The marquee is at the entranceway to the refinery here. We would have a custom designed sidewalk engraving that would further designate the entrance to the building. The ground floor, if I can remind you, is public. The park bathrooms are on the ground floor. There'll be retail on the ground floor. Upstairs is office. So the ground floor is really meant to be a public space. But let me show you why this is required of PDC approval. Everyone here knows where this building is. I don't need to get into that. This is where we are in terms of our construction schedule. Work is proceeding very quickly at the refinery. We're going to be done by August. The building on the southern end of the site is also under construction, as is Domino Square, which is another acre of parkland that will open in between the refinery and what we call Site D. This is the key slide here. I'll explain it. Basically, if you look at the refinery in the middle here, there are private streets on three sides of the refinery. Meaning that Two Trees owns those streets and maintains them and pays to maintain them and does the sanitation on them and plows them, etc. We're going to install a series of 4-inch wide light poles on these privately owned streets. You can kind of see where in the circles here that are uplights that will shine on the facade and allow it to be seen from some distance in a gentle wash to highlight the brick. Many of you have seen it. It's lit at night now. It looks pretty. I think it looks pretty good. Our goal is to have this lighting on 4 sides of the building, but Kent Avenue is a public street, so therefore we have to go to the Public Design Commission to approve designs on that public street. So the granite paver distinctive sidewalk that we're proposing is also on Kent. So those two elements require PDC approval, and PDC requires a check-in with the community board. So I appreciate your flexibility in allowing us to present tonight. I don't need to describe to this group the historical relevance of the building. Everyone knows the actual restoration of the brick was a painstaking process, took 2 years. We spent about $10 million. The difference between what it was and what it is now, you can see in this slide a little, but that's a rendering, but here you can see it in real life. Obviously a lot of work went into the restoration of the brick. The brick looks beautiful. It's been designated as a city landmark, and we're eager to light it gently at night. Here you can see the different proposed light treatments that depends on where the light posts go. But basically we're looking at the last one, where you have just a straight uplighting from the sidewalk in front of the refinery along Kent. These are this is a picture of what the actual light will look like. This is a picture of the width and of the light pole. But basically, as I mentioned, you can see these tiny pink dots along Kent are the 4 proposed light posts that we're talking about tonight. And they'll be relatively invisible to most pedestrians and cyclists and drivers alike, but the impact by having the 4th side of the refinery lit at night, as well the Brooklyn facing side, actually, I think is a good trade-off for having the 4 light poles. Here you can see again the uplights along Kent, and in blue are the uplights along the private streets, which we're planning on doing to uplight the building from all 4 sides. We're getting into the sidewalk here. Looking at a distinctive granite curb that would just be in the section of the building where the marquee is, which is the roof of the entrance. All of this would be maintained by 2 trees. We would have a special arrangement with DOT to maintain these items in perpetuity, so as not to cost the city any money. We have some examples. They wanted us to give some examples at the PDC of public buildings that have uplighting at night. So we found these 2. And then there's some in other cities, which are obviously not as relevant to this conversation. But here is a rendering of what it would look like at street level with both the uplighting. You can see the poles, casting light up along the facade, gently washing the facade with light, and then also having to light the street for pedestrians underneath. And that's here you can see the lighting underneath the marquee, and as well as the entranceway to the refinery, which is, given the size of the building, we discussed this at length at the landmarks meeting in front of this committee. But given the size of the building, which is 500,000 square feet, this is a very modest entrance for a building of that size. So we're looking for additional ways to kind of demarcate the entrance to the building. This is just more detail on the lighting fixture, on the light pole. You can see 16 feet tall, 4 inches wide. And that's it. We did talk with DOT briefly about their long-term plans to put in a bike median here, which we of course support. Right now it's a highly traveled bike lane. DOT has a plan in the future to create a concrete median or buffer between the traffic and the bike lane, and that's something that I know pedestrian and cyclist advocates are in support of, and it's something we support. And in the event that happens, we could consider moving the light posts to the median. I personally think that makes it more confusing, but it's something DOT was interested in, so I put it on here just for discussion if anyone has a point of view about that. But that's basically the presentation. I'm happy to answer as many questions as you have. But just to summarize, 2 design elements that require PDC approval: the 4 light posts along Kent, and the distinctive sidewalk that's visible in this rendering.
Can you describe a little bit more specifically what that sidewalk is going to look at? How it's going to stand out from the rest of the sidewalk?
Yes. I have some detail here. You can see their granite. It's a a standard issue DOT granite paver. That would be be clearly different than this, what the normal sidewalk treatment is, which you can see on either side of it, which are these kind of larger rectangular blocks or square blocks. And let me see if I have a little more detail here. Yeah, here you can see there's a change. There's a different shade of gray being utilized, and within the design, there are different shades of gray of paver within the design. So nothing color, it's all I think fairly mundane, but it is distinct from the color that is that you can see on the rest of the sidewalk.
So it's a little bit darker than the rest of the sidewalk?
It's a little bit darker.
Okay.
In terms of our preference, I mean, we think the distinctive sidewalk is a nice feature. We think the lighting is essential. It would be really silly to have the refinery lit from 3 sides and not 4 sides. And it's the Brooklyn facing side, it's the neighborhood facing side. So, I think it would be a shame not to have the modest uplighting facing Williamsburg.
I think it might be also nice for the people passing by, pedestrians.
Yep.
Nice.
It's dark there now, obviously.
Yeah, it is dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions for anyone?
I do, Del.
Sure.
Yeah, thanks, David. Yeah, I think it'll make, the building look really beautiful at night, and like the granite. Just a question about how the street along Kent, how that'll be illuminated at night, just from, visibility, traversing the street, safety standpoint.
Yeah. This is something, I mean, we've spoken to DOT a number of times about adding some additional crosswalks across Kent. Currently, the traffic to and from the park during peak hours is a lot, and there's not enough pedestrian crosswalks. So they did a study and they agree, and at some point there'll be additional crosswalks. But in terms of at night, there are existing DOT street poles on the eastern side of the street that will be lit, and then where there are a couple of existing ones on the western side of the street where the refinery is, that will be relit, that are currently out of commission because the site's been under construction for a number of years. So there'll be regular DOT streetlights as well as these uplights and sidewalk lights that we're proposing to add.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay.
Ask a question?
Sure. And Dave, I think you can take down your presentation so that way I can see everybody who's here. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Can we go back to I don't know the presentation again, but if you could speak more about the bike lane,
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Can you speak more about the modification of the plan to accommodate the improved bike lanes that the DOT is talking about putting in? I bike down there a lot, and I'm always a fan of more protection for those lanes, and I think the any kind of construction. I'm a big fan of the lights, by the way. I think it would look really, really handsome and nice. But it sounds like there is a provision for being able to have our cake and eat it too, right? Like have those barriers in and the lights. Is that something that could be baked into this approval?
For the record, that's not a part of this application or presentation, but Dave, if you could answer.
Sure. I mean, it's a DOT capital project. I think that it's planned but not funded yet. And there would be a hardened bike median, all along Kent there, where north of the bridge. I don't know how far north it goes, but it's certainly their intention to do it the length of the Domino site. It's part of the Greenway plan that's been in the works for decades. And I think it's, a necessary safety addition given the amount of traffic that we typically see going down that bike path every day. But I don't know that the specific layout or the timeline. I just merely, in as part of this application, we needed to work with DOT, and they noted that this was in the works, but didn't have, seemingly it's not imminent, but hopefully it materializes sooner rather than later.
But there's my question was, there's nothing in your proposal that would make it harder for that to happen? You said
No.
it's okay. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Okay, thanks. Good question. All right. Are we ready for a motion on this?
Yeah, I motion to approve.
Anybody second?
I second Steve Chesler.
All right. Let me call the roll call. You know what? I have to turn my lights on. Okay, I'm back. Okay, Teeny, yes. Chesler,
Yes.
Kaminsky, Drinkwater, Indig, Canton,
Yes.
Shelterborn,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Michelli, Rabbi Niederman,
Yes.
Sofer, Vega,
Yes.
Weiser, Berger,
Yes.
Krachka,
Yes.
Napletarski, Stone. Okay.
Nine yes, 0 no, no abstentions.
Great. Okay, that passes. All right, guys. Am I not supposed to use guys? I'm sorry if that offended. I'm old. I think that is it for our meeting tonight. And it is certainly a possibility that we won't have to meet in person over the summer, but as most of you know, things can come up. So got my fingers crossed that this will work and that we can all have a great summer and get some well-needed time off and rest. Anything else?
And some fun.
Yes, that would be great. That would be so good. Okay, so I'll see you all at the next board meeting. Oh, and don't forget, we have a special meeting coming up to vote on the new associate person in the office to hopefully give Joanna a well-needed hand in the office. So I think that's I think it's the day before our full board meeting. And
So it'll be the 12th and 13th.
yeah, I think that's it. Yes.
Give people notice, I mean,
I think notice has been sent. Yes, absolutely.
no.
Not yet. Not yet.
No, Joanna, it hasn't been sent yet?
No, the chair wants to discuss that tomorrow during the interviews.
I'm sorry, then I shouldn't have said that because it may not be written in stone. I thought it was.
It should be an executive session, not a special
Don't
meeting.
share your secrets with all of us.
All right, I'm in trouble now.
It's okay, Rabbi. We don't talk. We keep things within house. You know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
within the house.
This is
and
a good
for anyone
committee.
who wants to come on
But just in case it is the 12th, I'm making sure my date is, it's
Okay,
the counter's open. That's all.
yes, save the date because that was discussed and, but again, not written in stone. So if we change it, then if for whatever reason, I'm sorry that I said anything, but there you go.
Good. Now we'll just have,
At least you know to
Yeah.
at least say
No.
that day and so.
That's it. That's all we
I
ask. is-
submit a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Yes.
Approved. Thank
I
you.
I just want to also
I never
quickly
argue
say,
with you,
hey,
Rabbi. Never argue with you. You know that.
Yes. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Buenas
everybody. Hey,
noches.
Raleigh.
Good night.
Bye.
thanks a
Meet
lot,
all
man.
of you.
Appreciate your
Good
input.
night. Good
Thank
night.
Thank you so much,
everybody.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time.